Oh, I can't get my sound on. Hello, everybody, and welcome to yet another insider conversation with two really fun people. One I know really well, and the other I don't know at all. So tonight was the first, is the first time, will be the first time that we are speaking. So let me quickly introduce you to Harold van Buuren, the Harold van Buuren. You've seen him on TV, you've seen him on stage, you've seen him in competitions here and around the world. So Harold, welcome and thank you very much for being with us tonight.
Thanks so much, Dirk. It is such a pleasure. I'm so excited to be here and look forward to this. Thank you.
And he is joined by Nombulelo Hlati, who is one of probably the shortest dancers I've ever come across. She's only 1.46 centimeters tall, 1.46 meters, I mean. Absolutely powerful. I've been watching some video clips, some interviews, reading a CV. And so really great to have this ultimate entertainer, sports person with us as well. Hello, Nombulelo.
Hello, Derek. What an honor. Thank you for the invite.
And tonight I am completely out of my own depth, out of my own comfort zone. And that for me is a wonderful place to be. So I am using tonight as a chance to be educated myself as well. And so let's start with Harold. He's been around a little bit longer, so he can tell us a little bit about himself, where he comes from. How did it happen, Harold? Really, what made you choose this life? And tell us about this life.
Geez, Dirk, where do I start? A little boy in a little township called Coronationville, and his dream was just to dance. That's all I wanted to do. I wanted to do nothing else except dance. And the day my uncle grabbed me from the yard in the sand where I was dirty as anything, and he just dragged me off to ballet school. And that's where this incredible journey started for me. I never looked back. Nobody knew, because as a boy, it was always difficult to say you wanted to dance as a boy. And even ballet, men in tights was always frowned upon. And it was difficult for me. But when I went there, my dream was made. And it started right there with my ballet teacher, Joka van Polen. Polish lady, very strict, wonderful posture, upright, and she took no nonsense. She just wanted it right. It started there. And then one day, my mom took me off to a competition at Sun City. I saw these Latin American and ballroom people, and I was in awe. And I was like, OMG, I didn't even know things could shine like those dresses. I want this. Then I went to a ballroom school in Eldorado Park. It was called FJT. The club owner was Harry Job and Priscilla Myberg, and that's how I started ballroom. And in 1 week they entered me, Joburg City Hall, go, and I won. So that's how I came back and said, okay, this is what I want to do. Continued that, but continued school as well, and eventually got onto the Achille Lauro. After being at Sun City, sorry, I forgot saying first, got to Sun City, got 3 years of working there, 3 contracts. Then from Sun City, got onto the Achille Lauro. From the Achille Lauro, got myself to Switzerland. In Switzerland, I was there for a year, but of course, Paris was the dream. So then got to Corsica. I represented Switzerland with 7 other dancers. We danced in Bastia in Corsica. That's how I got the French visa. Off to Paris I go, auditioned, got the show, and there I was in Paris for 10 years. But always coming back, every year coming back, because I missed mom, old-fashioned boy, mommy's boy, I admit. Kept coming home every year, always staying in touch with what's happening here. And then eventually, you think, mom's getting older. I don't want to miss time with her. And that's when I decided time to come back to South Africa, when everything got easier to travel, to get around the world. You could do that. And then from South Africa, I've been choreographing all over the place. Japan, you're all over Europe, Middle East, Africa, the Ivory Coast, and yeah, the story continues. If I can say that for now.
Absolutely. So there are many things that you mentioned that I would like to talk more and pack more. But before that, let's quickly also hear the same kind of idea with you, Nombulelo, and hear kind of what makes you tick and how that making you tick got you into this world.
See, I always tell people that dance found me. It's like I didn't have to go searching for it. So you know, when you grow up in our Black community, sometimes you are either raised by your grandma or your aunt for the first couple of years of your birth. So I was staying with my aunt who had a daughter who was a professional Latin American dancer. Then she's late now. Her name is Thelma Skosana, and she was a champion then. And then, you know, as a young girl growing up under your sister cousin, you who's bringing trophies at home. So you also wanna. I mean, when you bring a trophy home, you get all the attention. As the young one, you have a role model that you aspire to be like, and you see your sister dancing with fridges and everything that she can. You know, she's always dancing, practicing, and I'm emulating her. So that's how I started dancing. So I was born into it. My family is a family of dancers. So that's how I got into it. And I didn't know a little girl I had a competitive spirit. So even when I started competing, I always wanted to win, you know. And yeah, and that's how I started dancing basically. So up until now, where I'm a professional dancer, had an opportunity to represent South Africa in different countries, your Austria, your London, and I've also had opportunities to do Strictly Come Dancing about 3 seasons and Dancing with the Stars. So yeah, dancing is my heartbeat.
That's excellent. And so let's talk about when you say you come from a dancing family, because Harold also spoke about his uncle. And before we started, he actually spoke that his uncle danced in the Mercedes Molina company. So family is very important in this world of dance. It's something that I always find lacking in South Africa, is that we don't have on an opening night at the ballet the generations and generations of former ballet dancers coming to the theater and being honored. And in the same, the Latin American and ballroom dancers and contemporary dancers. I feel that we live in such silos and so apart and so fractured. But let's talk about your family first and how they really actually made it happen for you. Nombulelo.
Okay. See, because of my love for dancing, they didn't have an option very much because of also my stubborn personality. You know, parents, they support you, but our parents want you to go to school. And even if you decide to take dancing as a career, it's not something that is easily welcomed. Even my sister, in her professional years, she ended up not continuing, but end up doing your a job, working at a bank, or yeah, working at a bank. So with me, I have a little bit of a stubborn personality. So my mom found it very difficult, and she had no option but to support me throughout. Because I was adamant. I did go to school. I do have a degree in BCom statistics. So, but that part really, I was doing it for my family to be satisfied. But where I live is in the northwest, and we there's a company called Mabana, which basically deals with the arts. And I was privileged enough. When I left Johannesburg, the East End, then to come to the northwest, I was dancing for Mabana as a young girl, continued until I was hired there. So when I finished school, I went into a learnership there. So in terms of parent support, it's not easy when dance is not viewed as something that you can make a living out of. But at the end of the day, when you grow up, you have to live your life. And
Absolutely.
yeah, you have to live your life, and your parents, all your parents can do is support you, even though they fear, they don't see so many dancers being successful in terms of making dance a career. uh, I mean, in our field, I must say the name that still has stuck on people's heads is Tebogo Kgobokwe's name. Even after that, it's like nobody else has ever come after her.
A powerhouse,
So
absolute powerhouse.
yes. So it is important to have family support, and because we are from different backgrounds as well, it's not easy. I think from being from a black family, I don't know. That's just how I feel. They feel that education is more important than the arts. So all they can really do is support you. And then if you feel strongly enough that that's what you're born to do, then I believe that you have to fight and go against the odds. And yeah, being a believer, I said to my mom, God cannot give me a gift that he cannot provide for. So yeah, but it's not an easy journey.
It's not.
You have to
It's
make
not.
you have to make the decisions.
And I always say to people, if you act like a beggar, you'll be treated like a beggar. And this is what happens with the arts, is that we always saying, oh, please support us. No, it has to change completely. And in many ways, I feel that we've gone backwards. You were talking, Harold, that you had a vibrant world where you got trained, first in Coronationville, and then later in El Dorado Park, and then the world. And you talking about the Mabana Cultural Center in Mafikeng. Is the Mabana Cultural Center actually still operating?
Yes, it is. It has its challenges, but it is.
And that question shouldn't be a question. We should all know that it's still there.
Mm,
We should
mm,
all be
mm.
supporting. And I think this is why I always say, and I go always back to my little pizza analogy, um, that we are all trying to get a piece of the pizza, but the pizza is only so big. So if we all want a slice of the pizza slice has to get smaller and smaller and smaller, and it's not sustainable. So instead of cutting the pizza into smaller pieces, we should try and find more pizzas so that there's enough pizza for everybody. And so I think that is a very, very important thing in everybody's way of looking at it. In the world of ballet, the fact that there's a Joburg Ballet in the north isn't enough. There should be 5 more companies, but there's such an infighting in the world that it fractures it more, instead of saying no, 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 more of us. In Cape Town there needs to be more, in each of the provinces there needs to be more, and the same needs to happen in Latin and ballroom. And so that is something that I find so very, very important. But let's quickly go back to Harold. What has changed, do you think, Harold, in that it's almost harder now, as I said just now, to get your family and your friends and your community to support you like you were supported in the past?
Absolutely, Dirk. And I mean, this pandemic has just made things even worse. The thing is that in the past, everyone got excited easier. Now, people are more skeptical. There's so much political influence in everything, where there's always the careful, how do I do this, or how do I go there, or what do I do to get this right, or whose toes am I treading on, or which federation is not going to be happy with me, which federation do I choose, how do we all, and that's why the analogy that you used as the pizza, it might sound simple, but it's not, because you are right. How do we create more pizzas for everybody to enjoy? How do we look at this and envisage a different way of approaching this? At the moment, we all seem to be vying for the same pizza. I mean, you couldn't have said it better. So yeah, you're right. The thing is, and that's what makes our parents so skeptical. That's what makes them not want to trust the arts, because that is the I call it volatile world we live in. As dramatic as we are, so is this artistic world that we exist in. And it changes from one minute to the next. And that is what scares our parents, or our families, etc., etc.
Absolutely. So, so often we think as the arts as the cherry on top of the cake. And actually, the arts is what keeps a community together, keeps a community healthy, keeps the community reflecting on what they are doing. And I think this is very, very important. So I'm working with a project with WITS at the moment and the UWC to say, well, let's find a way of educating not the arts teachers. They already, I always say, they sing from our hymn book already. They already, whether it's dance, drama, or music. And I'm talking particularly about performing arts. But how often has a kid gone to their teacher and said, "Sir or ma'am, I would like to be a dancer," whether it's a ballet dancer, a Latin dancer, and the teacher says, "Are you mad? You should get a degree first." And so I want us to train the teacher, the normal day-to-day teacher, math, science, biology, to understand the arts, to respect the arts, and to appreciate the arts, not to become artists or arts teachers. No, they have to be what they are, but they have to have a sympathy and empathy for what it is that we are doing so that they can then support. Because I always say, the cap that I'm wearing, the jacket that you are wearing, the painting behind your head, they are all done by artists. The car that you are driving was designed by an artist. And if we don't support and respect the arts, none of those things will happen. None. So, and in line with that, you spoke about the fact, Harold, that you wanted to go to France. I have a question from a Facebook viewer saying, so you have talent, you are recognized as a dancer, but at what stage do you kind of say, well, I've kind of given up in South Africa, I'm rather going to go overseas and dance there? And it's not a case of threatening, of saying, oh, no, it's just your art is so important. Our lifespans as dancers are very, very, very short. So what advice would either of you give a young dancer in South Africa, a young Nombulelo, a young Harold, to say, apart from the fact that we say follow your dream, what other advice would you give young South African dancers? Nombulelo, let's start with you.
Yo, to be honest, to be really, really honest, it's such a tough question. I'm gonna talk about me because I remember there was a point in my life where I sort of felt like I hit a dead end. And that was actually, to be honest, that was in 2017. I went to a world championship in Malaysia. And I remember sitting there after the first round. We were knocked off the first round. I remember seeing some of the dancers that had made it. And I remember thinking to myself, I can do this. I'm actually at this level of these dances. And I remember sitting there feeling like, I don't know, but it felt like a dead end. And I remember thinking to myself, if I want to carry on with my dancing career, I have to leave South Africa. That's how I felt at that time. That this is it for me. It's either I focus on teaching or I go pursue my dreams overseas. Because being a professional dancer, you look at the state of dance in your country and you feel like there's nothing left for you to do in your country. So, well, I was in that dead end and other things happened. I never really got to decide what to do. So to advise a young dancer, it takes resources as well, and it takes having connections. I have a friend who's studying law, who believes that there's so much out there that if people know how to search, how to search and connect themselves with either families or exchange programs, ways in which you can get yourself overseas. And I said to her, when I was growing up, I dreamed of moving from South Africa to staying overseas, but there wasn't anyone I could share that dream with who could make me see that it was possible and actually take some steps to travel overseas. So you don't just up and leave. I don't know. I think it's finding the right information, having the support of your family, knowing when to leave. Um, and yeah, money. You cannot just live without money.
Money,
So
she's a horrible thing,
it
isn't
means
she?
so it means somehow as South Africans we need to find a way to grow the skill here at home and have our own things here at home. Of course, travel and it. I mean, traveling gives you great exposure and it opens up your mind. So, but it's an endless world of possibilities. So, if you want to travel overseas, really, it's going to take money and the support of your family. And especially with ballroom dancing, I once had him, one of the adjudicators, I was still very young. He was adjudicating Rumba in the Jungle. And he said, as a ballroom dancer, if you don't have money and you don't have time, forget it. You can imagine you're in Africa and you're telling Africans that if they don't have money and they don't have time, they must forget about their dream. So it's a painful thing to hear, but if we don't have support of some sort, or we're not finding ways to generate the money, then it means then we must create our own things here at home. It's a
That's
tough
very,
one.
very true. No, no, it's very true. You know, we created the South African Ballet Theatre, and then we created Mzansi Productions, and then we created, now I have Mzansi Ballet. The competition, South African International Ballet Competition, was created without having a single cent of funding from any official body. We had a little bit here, a little bit there, and we constantly still saying, oh, we don't have enough money. But it still continues, number one. Number two, we created it because not everybody can hop on a plane and go and watch a competition or a performance overseas or take part on things. So I wanted to find a way of bringing that to South Africa. And that's why the competition started. So you are 100% right. We have to be entrepreneurial. We have to be innovative in finding ways of making things happen, because you are not the only Nombulelo in a country with 59 million people. There are many other young Nombulelos, Harolds, Dirks, etc., 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 that want to dance. And we have to find them and get to that point of critical mass that we can start saying we have audiences, we have supporters, we have funders, etc., 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 so that we can go on. Harold, what would your message be to a young Harold today?
Dirk, your art. My message would be start on the drawing board. Get to the floor, get to your art. The thing that I find a big mistake today, people are going niche too quickly. If you don't have resources, you've got to make it happen. You've just said it. And this is why I do find that we've got to make sure we explore the arts. You, as a young dancer, you don't know where your true talent lies as an artist. Let's talk dance. If you dream of dancing, there is so much variety and styles of dancing. And the way to be creative is to be able to go into any audition and make it. And unfortunately, if you have never had a contemporary class in your life, or a Latin class or a ballet class, forget it. You will never get through that audition. And it's so sad because we now do see auditions and we see how people fall short. They're incredible for one style, but it's not enough to fulfill everything, even in maybe one production you're doing. So, my advice would be get working, get technique. Technique is your friend, technique is your ally, technique is your structure. Understand technique of every genre, get those muscles working, get the ballet training. That was my training. My biggest asset was ballet. I started with ballet and nothing else. But after ballet, I saw Latin American and ballroom. I went into that. I excelled. I did jazz. I excelled. But I had a base of technique. I could walk into auditions. In Europe, the auditions I went to, they were for trained people. And the ballet training is what carried me. I mean, in Latin, we may think Latin's moving and shaking or whatever, but you don't understand how similar it is to ballet. That core, that axe you work on, I always say ballet, we work with the center, we work with the axe. Latin American, you start with that axe and you work from it, you move around it. So they are so similar. And I think as soon as you see that parallel, that line that goes throughout, that thread, you understand how dance becomes one for you. And you've got to keep doing auditions. You've got to be creative. Like you said, money doesn't just happen for everybody. It certainly didn't happen for me. I had to audition. I had to work on ship cruises. I had to be creative. I had to be forward. I had to say to the cruise director, listen here, what can I do? What else can I do? They were so happy with me. They said, Harold, you did so much for us. What can we do for you? And Harold said, fly me around the world. They said, we can't do that, but pick a destination and we'll fly you there. That time, only Switzerland did not need visas from South Africa. I chose Switzerland, went to Switzerland, went to ballet class, went to modern class, and got into companies like Inox, like Compagnie de Romand de Ballet of Switzerland. Got in, then got work and started going. From there, I always had this dream, getting to Paris. But that was how I started that journey. Then I got the French visa, and that's how I got to Paris. Not a single cent was just given to me to go anywhere. I worked my way through. That's my advice to any young dancer. I promise you, it is possible. It is completely accessible. Your talent will carry you, but you must develop your talent. Get that talent to be so good that nobody can ever say no to you.
That's very, very, very important, and thank you very much for that, because really, really, those are very, very true words. Before I'm going to ask you a question, I do have to say to many young dancers at different age levels is that, and their parents and their teachers, is that there are many different kind of foundations, organizations that actually do have money if you know that it exists. So there needs to be an easier way for us to understand
Access.
where this money sits, because I heard the other day that at the Department of Higher Education and Training, for instance, they have like a travel fund. It's not really a travel fund. It's for people, because they have exchanges with students studying in France or in Cuba or in Russia or in China or in wherever. And these countries come and they say, we would like to exchange with students from South Africa. And yeah, of course, most of the time it's on science or economics and things that they believe is more important than our arts. But nobody ever pushes them to say, but hang on, I can become a dance teacher that will be very productive in South Africa if you send me there to train or there to compete, etc., etc. And so my argument with that is that there really are places that we don't always think and know of where to go and look. So please, 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 guys, speak to the professional fundraisers, find those managers, find those people that can help you find that little tap that can help unlock some funding for your projects. It does exist. It seriously does exist. It's not easy. I will never say in this country funding for dancing is easy, because it's not. Nobody really cares, but it does exist. So please, please never give up. Always push, push, push. Now, I said in the beginning that I would like to have a lesson. And so the question to you both is, what is the difference between Latin American and ballroom dancing? Harold, let's start with you as the greater expert at the moment.
Dirk, the difference, there are so many differences, but to break it down as simply as I can, ballroom is a frame. You maintain frame, you hold your partner, you dance with her, and you guys never break contact for the ballroom as we know it. It's an elegant dance. You glide across the floor. Body flight. You've got to, in 3 strides, you must have gone through an entire dance floor from one side to the other. That's exaggerating, but that's what we strive for. That's what ballroom is. You want to glide as if there is no floor. Latin American is dancing into the floor. We don't want feet just to brush across the floor loosely, which is exactly the opposite of ballroom. Also, if you want hip action does not come from the hips, because that's, what do we say? Shaking your tush. That's not Latin American. Latin American comes from the feet. You dance into the floor. That pressure from your feet into the floor, with you using that floor, driving into the body, that allows for you to create the rotation in your body, and the hips, the spine, the lateral muscles, all of them work together around this axe I told you about. Whereas ballroom, we don't want any of that. So we don't need to dance into the floor. We glide across the floor because we don't like isolation and hip action. The body works as a whole. You stretch your sides, you dance up. Latin, you dance down into the ground, full of rotation, and that needs your feet to be working into the floor. Your steps are not ballroom. You glide. One step brushes and goes. Latin American, one step works from one foot to the other. Arriving on the next foot, we need to be able to read the story of the standing foot that you danced from and transferred your weight to get to the next foot. That's just the beginning. And then after that, we talk body, we talk active and passive. You can't have both hips moving at the same time, or frivolously or uncontrollably. There's a timing for every single inch of that one step. And of course, in ballroom, the balance, the man controls the lady. The lady gives us that beautiful top, but she's got to extend her spine. If she overdoes it, she's arching, she's hanging, bad posture. It all is all controlled like that. That's just the beginning, Dirk. There needs to be a bigger discussion about that.
So just in my head, so what we see at the Viennese ball or the Viennese waltz, that's the typical ballroom. And then what you see literally in Latin America, the people having the best time of their lives, that is kind of then your Latin American.
Characteristically, but dancing wise, not really, because the samba from Brazil, for example, you do not ground, you dance your samba out of the floor, you almost bounce. Whereas in Latin American, the jive, that's the one dance where you bounce. The others, the rhythmical dances, they're into the ground. So even that isn't exactly the same. And in fact, Latin American in the competitive world is closer to the Cuban way of dancing. They dance with their knees bent to do salsa, but in Latin American, we straighten legs. That's where the ballet technique comes in. You straighten your legs, you point your feet, but you don't just point the foot, you point the foot from the floor, not the other way around, extending the ankle into the floor. You first push into the floor, and so you grow from the floor. That's where this hip gets the rotation that it does. So I'd say it's closer to the Cuban action, and that's why we say we've adapted it to the Cuban hip action actually becomes a big part of Latin American.
So I want to watch, before we speak to you, Nombulelo, we're going to watch your video, and then you can talk about that. So let's watch a little bit of dancing, and we can use that as a kind of a further explanation, please. No hurry.
2 weeks, 2 days, my love gave me a long time. 2 weeks, 2 days, my love gave me a long time. You can see my baby, please send home. Hurry, oh, oh, baby, 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 hurry.
my goodness.
Ooh,
Talk,
watching
woman, talk.
myself dancing.
So what did we see? What?
So,
Go into it.
so I was gonna say that Harold really went in and explained in so much detail, like a real teacher does. So the dance that we just watched is part of the Latin dances. It's called the jive. This seems to be our favorite or my favorite because rather of the rhythm of it. You can see it's fast paced. It's about fast leg actions and a lot of energy. So yeah, so how you would differentiate it from ballet, from my experience of what I've observed and been privileged to be in Mazibugo's classes, not for long, but a little bit, is that actually I believe that ballet is a foundation for every dance, because that's where you are taught proper posture. That's where you are taught proper use of your legs. That's where you're taught pointing. So when you grow up and then you begin to understand dancing and then you're exposed to ballet, you begin to realize that it's actually the foundation of all dances. And a dancer actually is better for a dancer to start learning ballet where they are taught proper structure, then proper usage of legs, then you can be moved into Latin. Though what I've seen, it's a bit of a challenge is that now from the ballet, because you're not allowed to move your hips, it becomes a bit of a challenge for a dancer to adapt to now having to move their hips as opposed to being put on a square type of thing. Yeah, so the difference also between ballroom and Latin is like Harold has said about the framework and how the two people dancing as one, as opposed to the Latin where you are given a little bit of freedom. Latin, you're given a little bit of freedom. You're given a little bit of, you're able to dance individually as well. You are able to dance couple work. There's a lot of lead and follow, but there's also moments where you are able to part ways. So as opposed to ballroom you can only ever do that when you're doing show work. But in a competitive competitive platform, all you do, you guys are linked together as one. So yeah, that's the major difference. And you can find that people tend to gravitate towards the Latin American because of it seems like it's more rhythmical dances than the standard, where it's more classical. So ballet is like you are in a ballroom. I mean ballroom is like you are somewhere in England in a ballroom where where you are just gliding across the floor, just like Harold explained earlier. So yeah, so the difference really it's about, I think, that also the rhythmical side of things, without necessarily going too much into technical details. The rhythms are different. That's what makes them different.
It's amazing. I just love it. Harold, in 2008 or 9, maybe, yeah, I think it was 2009. Mzansi Productions did a season where we mixed ballet and ballroom and Latin, and Tebogo did a section and you did a section. And I remember, number one, first is that you did this section where you almost literally just stood and you just had this presence on the stage. So that will always be imprinted on my mind because it was just so unbelievably beautiful to see, and to just see how stillness can be such a powerful thing on the stage. And then the next moment you danced and it was like the third coming, and it was just unbelievable. So thank you very much for that. But in that same show, there was also, I think you guys call it an adage with, and now I can't remember who the gentleman's name.
Victor da Silva.
Victor, thank you very much. A Portuguese god, not a Greek god, a Portuguese god. dancing with his beautiful partner. And somebody just asked the question, how does the ballet pas de deux compare to Latin or ballroom? So if you looked at that thing that Victor did and what happens in the classical ballet, because again, people said, oh no, how can you mix the ballet and what you guys were doing? And I'm always trying to find new ways of bringing people together, of having these kind of conversations with people that isn't typical part of my world. But so try and see what you can do with the question about the ballet pas de deux and the comparison to Latin or ballroom dancing, please, Harold.
Absolutely, Dirk. I mean, you've just cited one of my favorite moments. You know, Victor was a four-time world champion in adage, in exhibition, in exactly that form of lifting. And if you remember, I brought him on stage on a Harley Davidson motorbike, bare
Absolutely.
chested, with sunglasses. And everybody thought, oh my God, here comes this rock concert. And then all of a sudden, you had all these ballerinas on full point going. And that juxtapositioning of different styles combining in an explosive world of coming together. That is my favorite thing, because the minute Victor took hold of one of the girls, the music changed completely. The atmosphere changed completely. He lifted her. He treated each girl with absolute correct technique. And this is what is so important, is that is why I use the word technique. Technique applies throughout. Balance is required no matter what you do. We love the term, the power of abandon. To go into a moment where you release your body, you first need to understand your center. Always, be it Latin, be it ballroom, be it ballet. You need to know where you are before you can understand where you're going to. Extension. We want extension in the Latin American genre. So girls have to be supple more than boys. Yet boys and girls, we're all doing that now. And technique starts in the same place. It develops and grows to different places, but it starts in the same place. Understanding your muscles, understanding your leg muscles, the inner thighs, outer thighs, the quads, your triceps, your biceps, your core. Everything's about all those muscles always. Moving from foot to foot. And that's literally what it is. That's why I like this juxtaposition of everything, because they are equally exciting when done properly. And I mean, you just cited the right one. The fact that's why I said to Victor, because he's I mean, like you said, Portuguese God. He's ripped to shreds those muscles of the body. He's fully tattooed on the body. So you've already, in a leather pants with sunglasses, the mind is set. You've assumed, you've decided where this is going. And then we
And the season
surprise
sold out because of that.
He'd love to, I will tell him, he's going to love to hear that. But I mean, just that guy, for example, Dirk, if you see the discipline day in and day out, the work put into every single touch, every single lift. And this is where what the lifting we do, the exhibition that we do, it's not just about up in the air and there you are. How did you get up there? How are you dancing in the air? How the heaviness of the shoulder line? There must be no heaviness. She's got to be as light as a feather. She's got to be able to extend from you. She's got to be able to dance from you. Once you have her up there, we still need to see your body dancing, her body dancing. How do you bring her down? How do you drape her down your neck as if she was the lightest chiffon scarf just hanging there before you roll her down and slide her into the floor and you continue into other choreography? So that's where, when you ask the difference, there is that difference. But the one thing that we take from ballet that is vital is the girl's got to understand how to be as light as a feather in the air. She must dance up. The minute there is too much effort exerted taking her up, we are bored. We have decided now she's heavy or you're weak. And that, I think, goes throughout. I don't think any of us like watching a couple that looks heavy, where she's not elevated and gets up there. That's classical contemporary ballet. That's all sorts of technique. We want the girl to get up there in one count. If the man doesn't get to extend his arm fully, he's not
Effortless.
going to have strength. Effortless, absolutely. So the thread for me already is created. It is the same. Those techniques, you bring them in, you apply them. What, and I always say, dance, it's one thread throughout. We all just a part of that massive thread of incredible, exciting, juicy work. That's why I don't like to be limited to doing just one thing. I'm mad. I want to see everything, try everything, do everything.
So you've spoken about a few things, but we are in Africa, and ballet is not the poster child in our country. And so it's a very contentious comment, the idea that ballet is the base of technique. And yet, if you think of our very good friends in Cuba, and you mentioned the salsa, in Cuba, it used to be that every single child in Cuba used to do ballet till around about the age of 12. And then they would say, Nombulelo, you should be a Latin dancer. Harold, you should be a contemporary dancer. Dirk, you should be a ballet dancer. Or Dirk, you should rather be a doctor. So that's what they did. Because in South Africa, we run this program called Training Teachers in the Townships. And yesterday we had, on Tuesday, we had a conversation with the student teachers in Soweto. And we have to honor the country that we are in, the people that we are in. And when we are talking about ballet, we are not saying ballet is more important than the other, or Latin American is more important, or ballroom, or Afrofusion, or Afro dance, or contemporary. It is about saying the ballet training, unless you are wanting to become the next Kitty Pedla or Toriso Mahongwa or Andile Ndlovu, the ballet training is just there to prepare the body and create the technique. So whether you want to become an African dancer, and I don't always like the term African dance, because African dance is in itself such a rich, diverse, beautiful thing. You know, I work a lot with Pansula, and I love Pansula dance. And so it's just the thing that prepares the body, that gives you a foundation. It's not saying you will become, as I say, the next Pavlova, but it does prepare the body. It helps you to be ready for whatever else is thrown at you at any good dancer. So
Dirk,
yes,
if I may just interrupt you, I mean, we're speaking
please do.
ballroom Latin, but you know that I was also a very reputed can soloist in France, in Paris, in the center of can. These legs were flying, and I had a reputation for having the highest, fastest legs sur la place de Paris. That's what they used to call it, because they couldn't believe the speed these legs would fly at. And I promise you, these ears had bruises. These legs went right there. So that's, I mean, can soloist in the heart of can, not doing a can in a touring company or anything. In the heart of Paris, where people expected the best can, I was that soloist. And that came from my classical base, you know, just to give another element of where you go with your ballet. That suppleness.
Nombulelo, any thoughts from you? Because I want to watch, after Nombulelo speaking, Harold's dancing from a while back.
I wanted to say, you know, everything that Harold has said actually is so true, because as you grow, or you become a stronger dancer, or you become a more knowledgeable dancer, you start understanding certain things that you wish you had been given opportunity to have learned earlier. I mean, with Latin American, once you start competing, you are limited to practicing or doing Latin American only. And at some point, you are expected to, at professional level or championship level, you are expected to do what you call this, your developers and stuff. But if you weren't trained those earlier on in your ballet classes, then it becomes a challenge having to move from only doing what do I say, standard work, or I don't know how to explain it, but what I want to say basically is that the ballet training is, I can't stress it enough. And what I love about it is how they have done conditioning so well to prepare a dancer to be able to do any kind of work. And I feel that in our field, there's still more work that needs to be done in terms of how do we condition a dancer to be able to execute the kind of work that we are expected to execute, but without this is my experience, without really the background of I think having ballet is such an advantage, such a huge advantage, because you even see that, you know, in ballet stretching is emphasized a lot. In our Latin world, how I grew up, yes, the stretching was emphasized, but not as much as it is in ballet, because you're expected to do a high kick, you are expected to have your leg here. In Latin American, that is very rare, but you can't find people now in their in open section in your championship work, those that have the background of ballet and the advantage of that work and the flexibility, the stressing of the flexibility, able to throw the what are these spins? What do you call these spins again? Pirouettes. Yes, yes. You know, and then you can't find people doing those pirouettes, and you know, and you can't, and they already have an advantage. So yeah, it's important to be a diverse dancer, but at the end of the day, you're going to also have if you are going to follow a certain stream, if you are too divided, it depends anyway, what is your ultimate goal. I mean, if you want to be a professional champion Latin American dancer, as much as you might get learn other genres, but you need to, it's time consuming, so you need to focus solely on that, because you want to reach a certain level. But if you want to be a performer that performs in theaters, get corporate work, then it is of very much importance to be a diverse dancer. So
Well,
I find that because
sorry,
I find that
yes, sorry, my apologies.
Okay, I was gonna say that because I was doing competitive dancing Latin for the longest time, that's what you tend to focus on. And sometimes when you now have to look for extra work to make extra income, you can find that if you go for auditions, then you don't have the skill. You might attempt, but you won't be anywhere near those people who are doing it daily. So if you are a theater dancer or theatrical dancer, or you want to do corporate work, so it means that you must really, really have a little bit of everything. Of course, you might have your special or your strong field, which might be ballet or contemporary. But I guess if you want to be diverse and want to do television work as well, you must be a diverse dancer.
Oh, absolutely. For instance, when we did Bengingazi with ballet and pansula, the ballet dancers had to do the opposite. They had to learn the pansula to inform the whole story and their own performance. So again, it works both ways, and I think that's really important. And there's a beautiful comment from Susan O'Keefe that said, do you honor the country or the art? And I think that's a very important question, and an interesting question. So thank you very much, Susan, for that particular comment, because it really is something that we can put in the backs of our head through any of these conversations. And then there's a comment also from one of our Facebook viewers saying that in a ballet class, it's kind of an equalizer, because in the end, everybody has to work, and no matter what the style of work is, you have to be the best in that particular class, and you have to take from that class what you need, which ties in with what you said, Nombulelo, because in the end, you take from that, and it makes you better and stronger for the future. Let's watch Harold dancing.
Idansi zijabule nezimbali ziqhakazile ubaba yesikwili umama yesimomondia
Oh, so we spoke earlier of the Portuguese god, but here was our Coronationville god dancing exceptionally. And the legs he spoke of going up, kicking it in the pata pata. How fantastic! Yeah, unbelievable. Really, really, really unbelievable. And this is again something that I do want us to and I told you we're going to suddenly realize it's 1 hour and it's time to say goodbye, and we will say goodbye shortly. But we forget the history that exists in our own country. We forget that in ballet. We forget that with you. We forget about Teboho. So when you guys are on TV, we think of you for a short while, but then nobody talks about it again. No newspapers write about it like they do with the rugby and the soccer. No, this is where we have to start punching and saying, give us what we deserve. And that is the respect, the honor of the work that you have put in, the skills that you have acquired by working your tush off that you spoke about shaking just now. That same tush you have worked off so hard, Harold, and you have become who you are, and you are giving back. You, Teboho, and many, many others, and now Nombulelo as well. And we just take it for granted. And it breaks my heart when I sit at the airport and a rugby player or soccer player is spotted, and there's everyone going, wow, and they ask for autographs. And then a superstar South African who has represented us all over the world walks past them and nobody even bats an eyelid. And I honestly feel we as artists have ourselves to blame to a certain extent as well, because we don't claim what is ours, number one. We don't demand what is ours, number two. And we just let it slide. No, we have to start standing up and saying, we demand as well. We must toy, and we must use the dance to toy with and show exactly what we are. So thank you, Harold, for what it is that you have done and what it is that you are giving back. So we are having to start saying goodbye. So Nombulelo, your final passing words to the people about why you would encourage them to keep on doing and living their passions.
You see, I believe that God created us for a purpose, and if your purpose is to be in the arts, you have to honor that, because then you otherwise, if you don't, you're gonna live the rest of your life unhappy and trying to figure out exactly what to do, but meanwhile you know that it's that one thing that you have been called to do. So I personally knew that I am supposed to dance, and when I look at how the events of my life being young and how they unfolded, I knew that God made sure that I could have lived with any other aunt, but I was taken to the one that had a dancer in the house because I had to be a dancer. So it is important to follow your passion and your purpose in life. If you are meant to live your life as a dancer, that's what you must do. I would encourage you to do the odds might be against you, but I always believe that there's always a way. So we are here today. We are testimonials or testimonies of that it's possible to do it. And this has been such an eye opener for me, and it really also now challenges me to say, what can we do more? Because I listening to you, I can tell that you are so selfless. At some point, as a dancer, you need to get to a point where you think about others and become selfless. So never give up on your dreams and pursue them. Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. And I'm looking forward to seeing you perform somewhere very soon, please. I can't wait.
Hopefully.
Yes, 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 yes. And amen to what you had said. Really fantastic. Harold, your final farewell. And I have to say again, thank you. Thank you for your time tonight, as much as also for Nombulelo. But thank you for what you do to keep on creating, keep on being inspired, not just inspiring, being inspired yourself to keep on doing and keep on going, because we need that and we love that and we love you. Your final words, please, Harold.
Dirk, thank you. Firstly, I also want to thank you because there's nothing better for me than when we can talk about art, when we can talk about what we do, that juicy subject called dance. I mean, oh my goodness, if I think my entire life, that's all I wanted to do. Now, that is what I'm talking about. It is the most wonderful subject. I'm having such a ball being here. You cannot believe. I cannot believe the time's over. And I just want to say to artists out there, we are working behind the scenes. I am not going to promise anything, but what I am saying is we are restless, we are warriors, and we are fighting for you. It is enough that South Africa favors athletics and soccer and rugby. It is enough. The time has come for the arts to be recognized for what they are. Because Dirk, you are right. When you said that somebody asked the question, do we honor the country or the art? I always said, through my art, I honor my country.
Another country.
Because wherever I've gone throughout the world, I have always said that I am an African and I come from the country at the bottom called South Africa. And that is why we have our place in the world. I have never not been a South African. All these interviews, I've been interviewed all over the world, and you will always hear me saying, I cannot wait to go back, to give back everything I've learned, working on the most incredible platforms with the biggest stars that we knew. But it was always to learn and to bring back. And this pandemic has taught me that it is now or never, that us in South Africa, it is time we took our place rightfully. And I cannot thank you enough, Dirk, for saying those words, because I am so passionate about that. There is so much to be done regarding dance. Dance always lags behind. Singers are always the stars of the show with dancers around them. It's time that dance is the star, and that every dancer knows they are a star. They must believe in themselves. And thank you for saying to stay inspired, because yes, I will be passionate till the day I die. When I stop breathing, I stop dancing. Till then, people, I promise you, I am working for dance to take its rightful place. It may not go as fast as we want, but I promise you, it's never ending, and I do believe we will get there. This is what this year must be turned into, the positive of being reset to zero so we can start again, so we can think creatively on how to get back up there. I don't think we can just go back to normal once everything's open again. We're going to have to find creative ways to fight for our art to be fantastic, better than it's ever been. And I think this year has been an incredible inspiration. Thank you, Dirk. Thank you, Nombulelo.
Thank you, both
guys.
of you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next week, a very dear friend, Jose Montoya, passed away a few weeks ago. And next week, we will be honoring his legacy, the Montoya legacy. We will be speaking to his wife, his ex-wife, his daughter, and we will be talking to them in their dance studio in Pretoria, where they will also be able to be dancing for us. So we won't only have clips and we won't only have videos and photos, but we will actually have the dancers dancing in the studio. So I'm looking very much forward to that. So to all our viewers and listeners, thank you so much for joining, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you very much also to Lauge Sorensen for your lovely work. Nombulelo and Harold, take care. Lots of love.
Thank you so much, Dirk. Lots of love right back. Thank you.
Thank you.